Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Check Writers Room. Three GPs, three angles, one hot take.
I'm Yasmin Cruz-Farine.
I'm Shalonda Armstrong.
My name is Sydney Thomas. Let's get into it. Well, hello, everyone. We're so excited to be here with you today. You're welcome to the Check Writers Room interview edition. So we're really excited to have an OG in the room with us today. We are, I think we talk a lot about on this podcast just how challenging it is to stay in this industry for a decade plus, and we're so excited to be in the room with someone who has done it for much longer than that. I think he's approaching 2 decades at this point. And so, without further ado, I'm going to give a really quick bio on William Crowder, who is the co-founder and managing partner of Aperture Venture Capital, seed stage fund focused on financial innovation. And as I said earlier, he's one of the most tenured investors in our ecosystem, focused on diverse founders. His background is from, East Coast. He's very East Coast, and so excited to have someone here who, first started out in venture at an accelerator in Philly, partner at Dream It Ventures, then launched the Comcast Ventures Catalyst Fund, the first corporate-backed diversity venture fund in the US. And after that was not done and co-founded his own firm called Aperture Venture Capital. I'm partial to him mostly because he's a fellow Dookie. So he spends his free time as an adjunct professor of venture capital at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business and holds an MBA from Duke and a BS and MS in computer science from NC State. So without further ado, welcome to the room, William.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That intro makes me feel old. I'm going to go with seasoned.
I love it. Well, I can kick it off with a few questions. We have a whole bunch of them. And so maybe I'll start with the first one or two, and then Yaz and Shalonda would love to welcome you to pepper him with additional ones. So
Let's do it.
awesome. Softball to start. How did you get introduced to venture, especially in 2011 when it was very much an old boys network? Go ahead.
And coming from North Carolina.
Yeah, no, it's excuse me. Absolutely what I would consider to be an accidental path. I was, as you mentioned, I had gone to school for computer science. I had been a software engineer. I went to business school, thinking that I was going to take over the corporate world and shift away from coding, and very quickly realized that that was not the path for me. But I didn't have any sense for what my path was going to be. And so for the next several years, I worked in a variety of different capacities without really understanding where any of this stuff was going to lead. And I just became, in many ways, it just became in tune with opportunity. Things would pop up, come up on my radar, seems like a good fit, and I just try it. I went from, pure play, from the purest sense of being a management consultant, working at a major firm, to doing the same kind of work in-house for a major corporation. Then deciding I was going to try that on my own for a while as an independent consultant. That gave me the flexibility from a lifestyle perspective. So that, I could check that box. I was like, okay, that's one thing I like. One of the things I didn't like was taking orders from other people. And so me being in a corporate environment, I knew I had a shelf life. It would go about 3 years and then we would have problems. And so at some point someone had to go, either the corporation had to go or I had to go. And I never got to the point where the corporation left. It was always me. And, upon arriving in Philly, we had been living in New York. I was trying to find a new opportunity for myself, and if you're familiar with Philadelphia, all signs lead to Comcast. Like there's no other way to avoid that. And around that time, 2010, 2011, there was a lot of consolidation happening in the media space, and Comcast and NBC had decided to combine. And one of the little known facts was that when that happened, in order to get regulatory approval, the current administration at that time was very much supportive of having more diverse faces in spaces. And so, thanks to Maxine Waters, Bobby Rush, and some others in Congress and in DC, pressure was applied. And the expectation was that Comcast would do something to improve its diversity track record, because the concern was that NBC plus Comcast together would equal even more, even less favorable experiences, if you will, for folks of color. And out of all of that came this idea that one of the things they would commit to was the creation of a venture capital fund that was specifically focused on diverse founders. And so because I had just gotten here and was still trying to kind of find my way and was looking for opportunities around Philadelphia, our paths crossed multiple times. And eventually they came to me and said, hey, what do you think about venture capital? And, truth be told, at that point, I had only thought about it once, and it was a passing thought, and there weren't many of us doing it. So it was never really thought upon as something that I would be pursuing with any level of scale. But that's how the paths cross, and I've been in the business ever since.
Amazing.
Yeah, William, I see as corp dev and corp venture as a way for quite a few folks to break into venture, but I often find that the motivating factor for corporates is different, more around kind of product adjacency and expansion and existing corporate, kind of priorities. So how do you look for, how do you think about that outcome versus kind of finding outliers in an independent venture firm?
Yeah. Within the world of corporate venture, there are different flavors of corporate venture capital, right? And so on one end, I would say perhaps on the extreme would be Google Ventures. They built an organization whose reputation precedes it at this point, where everyone looks upon them as just a hardcore venture capital unit in the purest sense of the world. They do whatever it is they think is going to generate substantial returns, whether or not that directly involves Google or any of their other assets. That's kind of, you can hardly argue today that basically anything you do is going to involve the company in some way, shape, or form, but it's not a strategic arm of the company. Right? They are literally out there looking to make returns, financial returns. Now, on the other side of the spectrum are those that truly do operate as almost an extension of corp dev. We are looking for the things that align directly with our strategies, and we would like to acquire those before anyone else does and before we have to pay market rate for it. So those are the extremes. And then that's a spectrum, and there's a lot of stuff in between that. My time at Comcast was very much spent closer to the Google model than it was the other side of the spectrum. And so we were investing in things that had absolutely nothing to do with Comcast. And in fact, when I started building the Catalyst Fund, I intentionally stayed away from anything media related. And became a pain point for a lot of folks, because I'd say if you were doing anything media related as an entrepreneur, don't talk to me. I'm not doing it. And part of the reason for that was I did not want to get pigeonholed as an investor to be known as the media guy. Like that, I knew that's exactly what I did not want to do. And so I had the freedom, and we did at Comcast, to in many ways kind of invest in almost anything. If you think about some of these large corporations, they have the ability to not just be focused on their strategy. They could be a bank, and they could do a whole bunch of stuff related to fintech, but they're also a bank that employs, say, 100,000 people, in which case, if you're building any type of solution that's focused on, say, HR, they're a great customer, right? And it has nothing to do with the fact that they're a bank and everything to do with the fact they're a huge employer. So I think that within that world of corporate venture, there are a lot of different flavors of it, and there's a lot of different places where you can play. And I think that's also why it's been, in many ways, a magnet for talent, because you can kind of be working in a corporation and have all kinds of different backgrounds and find a home in that corporate venture group, because they're a little bit more varied in how they bring people in and how they tend to leverage their experience for their benefit.
Hey, William, I know that kind of when you entered into the VC space, it was on the, let's just say, the tail end of a downturn. And then now we're in another downturn. And so now that you kind of lived through two of those cycles, what's been the same and what's been different around these two different downturns that you've experienced?
Oh, that's a great one. Well, I think one thing that people have to understand about venture is that it is absolutely cyclical, right? And so I would argue that the timing between cycles is not necessarily the same. It's not like, oh yeah, every 12 years we go through this, but it's guaranteed that as much as we might be up, we're going to be down. It's just a matter of time. And the nature of a venture fund itself is, nominally 10 years in its lifespan, but realistically it's probably more like 12, maybe even as much as 15. And it's almost guaranteed that every single one of those fund life cycles is going to experience an extreme up and extreme down. And so I think that's the piece that you have to be prepared for as a manager, is that it's all, as Jay-Z said, it was all good a week ago, right? Like it's great. When everything is great, it's great. But when it's bad, it's horrible. And a lot of people haven't experienced that part of it. And so they don't know how to manage through that. And so for me, kind of living through a few of these different cycles, even before I got into venture, I think it's given me a perspective that I can share with entrepreneurs who haven't been through these cycles, to say, look, I know it sounds kind of crazy. This is difficult, all those different things, but let me tell you, it can be a lot worse. And so as a result, kind of in anticipation of that, these are steps we need to take. These are the strategies we need to employ. These are the things you need to have in your toolbox, just in case things don't, kind of go the way we hope, or God forbid, the bottom falls out much faster. So now if you kind of compare our most recent downturns, right? Like the thing that concerns me more than anything else about the one we're experiencing right now is that it's not just the fact that we've got an extreme acceleration of technology and innovation. Like that's just one shock to the system in this case. We've got a tremendous amount of geopolitical activity that's having a major impact on this as well. And unfortunately, some of that being self-inflicted. That's the piece that's not normal, right? Like we've not lived through the phase when we're stabbing ourselves. So it's one thing to adjust on the fly to the bullets flying and everything else. It's something completely different when we're doing it to ourselves. And so because of that, it's a little bit, it's much harder to kind of predict what exactly should I be standing on right now. So it's hard to get your footing. I think that level of uncertainty is what's making this one a little bit more pronounced, if you will, than previous ones. So you can kind of go back to, '08, '09, that situation. I was kind of coming out of a role. I had been doing some work with AOL, Time Warner, all that back then, and was out here deciding, you know what, I don't want that job anymore. I'm gonna do something different, which is absolutely nonsense if you're someone who's got a family in the middle of all that drama that was happening in the corporate world. But I was comfortable doing that because I felt like we'd been here before, and I had a good sense of understanding, well, this is the way technology is evolving. So as long as I'm playing in these particular spaces, I'm going to be fine. I'm not in a vulnerable category. Those have been the lessons of the previous cycles. Like you could always kind of figure out, okay, there's a pocket for me. There's a place I can go. When I finished business school, it was, there was not, the bubble was still inflating on the .com side. So, we came out, we got 3 raises before we even started. Between graduation and our start date, we got 3 raises. 2 years later, they're laying people off and encouraging you not to come to work. We'll pay you not to show up. Like all that stuff was happening. But in the midst of all of that, and people are saying, I can't find jobs, and they're, bailing on their properties in the valley and the whole thing, it was still not Armageddon from the standpoint of there was an opportunity. There was plenty of opportunity still. And so we kind of managed through that. The one that we're going through right now has far more, it's a much broader scale in terms of its impact. And so that's harder. The other part of this is we've never really seen this concentration of capital in the way that it's happening now. And that's having a significant effect as well on our industry, certainly as as actual managers of funds, but also entrepreneurs that are seeking capital. All those other factors I mentioned, all those shocks happening at the exact same time, and then this extreme concentration of capital. We've not seen these dynamics play out in this particular way. Now, we have certainly experienced a situation when the money's just not available to us, but for different reasons. Right. Now, we actually have the entities that could receive the capital and could manage it, but they're out here, it's almost like Hunger Games, trying to get the money, and they're trying to compete David versus Goliath with these folks. They're just sucking up all of it. So this is a completely different ball game. And yet in the middle of all of that, there's reason to be optimistic. So here we are.
What you just said took a lifetime to learn, like an entire lifetime to learn. You are not one to blog or tweet or I think be in the public as frequently as I think some other folks are. And I think I'm now tying it to your engineering background. I feel like that's very much like an engineer mindset where I'm just like, I'm just going to do my work. Exactly, Shalonda. I'm just going to be here, do my work, and it'll be fine. All y'all can figure out your shit. And I'm curious, like, what are some of the fundamental things that kind of like the public square around discussing what it takes to raise a fund or be in venture capital more broadly? We can take this any way you want. Where are we getting that wrong in the public?
So here's the thing, because it's kind of funny. Like I certainly don't. You're right. Like I don't blog, I don't tweet. It's very. There's not a lot out there that I have actually authored that's public. But I have plenty of opinions, and my team knows all the time. I have all kinds of things to say. I just never really say them out loud necessarily. And there was a time when I was when I was getting into the business and trying to build out the Catalyst Fund at Comcast. Like I was, you find me in panels and all kinds of discussions, the whole thing, just trying to get people to know who I was. But I've always been the kind of person that I'm always listening, even if I'm not talking, right? So I'm in the room and I'm paying attention and just trying to learn. That's how I got into this business, and that's how I've been able to stay. Because when I was in Comcast, there was no interest in helping me amongst the entire team. There was no interest in helping me do this well. I found a few people who were willing to help, and that's how, and then I was self-taught, which is also the way I learned how to code. I just go and figure it out on my own. I think that the things that I've seen people talk about publicly, write about, whatever, and one of the things that bothers me is this is typically written by someone who has not had a lot of experience. And so there's not a lot of depth, and there's no appreciation of nuance when it comes to the writings. So I read things, and I'm like, okay, there's nothing about what you just said that's moving to me. So I just kind of dismiss it. I would say that there is not enough emphasis in what people say about just how challenging it is not to launch a fund, but to keep it going, like to actually
Mm,
make this way through. So there's a lot of focus, and I'm in these rooms all the time. People like to talk about who they invested in. Oh, we funded X number of black founders, or certain number of women have received capital from us. I'm like, okay, all that's great. How are they doing? What's the yield? How many of these are getting to the finish line and having major exits? Because that's the only thing that's going to really move the needle, right? And so I think there's a lot of focus. The press does it. Everyone wants to write your article about how much capital you raise. Like that stuff is cool, but it's not even it's barely a third of the job. The job is what happened after you invested. How do you manage that fund? How do you make your follow-on investment decisions? How do you manage the capital? How do you communicate with your LPs? What kind of information you sharing with them? What's your cadence? What's your rhythm? Like that's all the nuts and bolts. It's not sexy. TechCrunch is not going to write about it,
yes.
but that's the stuff that keeps you in the business. It's what helps you build a reputation amongst LPs that they want to come back and work with you again and again and again, even if things didn't go so well, because they compare you with the other folks and say, yeah, but my experience working with them was so good that I trust that they're going to eventually figure this thing out. So we're going to come back in again. And so I think that there should be, certainly among us, there should be more conversation, whether it be public or not. There should be more conversation about how do we stay here? How do we stay in this game? When I got involved in venture, there was a picture that we took. I hosted an event in New York, and I tried to get all of the partners at venture firms that were black, and then those that were non-partners, but at least had influence into, as to whether or not you were going to get a check from their firm. There was like 12, 13 of us from both coasts that gotten together, and we knew who was missing. And then it was kind of a joke. And we're like, look, whatever we do, no sudden moves, because if anything happens in New York right now, then this whole thing is over. Like, this is it. This is all. This is all we got. And then you fast forward, 10 years or so, and now there's a lot of us, relatively speaking. The number is multiplied substantially. But what people are not talking about, and this is what we were concerned about post George Floyd, was that there would be a, relatively speaking, flood of capital coming our way. A large number of funds, again, relatively speaking, a large number of funds would be established. And then we would get the boomerang effect, which is, okay, we did that. We're not doing that anymore. Now who's still swimming?
Yep.
And we're going to watch a lot of people end up in between the beach and the boat. Now, and they're trying to figure out, how do I swim to get to either one of those places? And unfortunately, what we're going to have is we're going to have a lot of people who are going to drown. And so part of that is going to come from the inability to kind of fully manage a fund from beginning to end. But that comes from lack of experience, lack of information, all the things that would be really critical for you to know to kind of make your way through that. And there's not a lot of information available because a lot of these people are new and they don't have a lot of experience. And so that is a point and a place where I think being a little older is beneficial, just because it's like, again, if it's going well, you can find all the kind of information you need on what to do when everything is going well.
Right.
But when it's rough, you don't find people talking about that at all, or even wanting to talk about it. You got to have good relationships with people to be able to say, hey, what do you do when three of your portfolio companies are going to go under in the same quarter? Like, what do you do? How do you deal with that?
So, William, looking at kind of the performance that's coming out that's defining this era, folks who made bets on AI infrastructure, in 2022, 2023 are those that are getting recognized and about to experience IPOs. And from an LP perspective, I think there may be a filter around kind of that cohort that made the AI infrastructure bet in 2023. Many of us who are coming to, having firms established in 2021 did not get access to those companies, period. Like, we didn't even get an opportunity to invest. Not the ability to say it's in my anti-portfolio, which is a completely different thing. So we have that kind of framing for this moment. And also, I love that your background as a software engineer, because one of the things we're trying to figure out is what's happening in the software. Like, does that whole market of buyers, do they even exist? Or what's going to happen now building AI natively for companies?
Yeah.
Like, in that opportunity. So how do you frame kind of, a lot of folks are going to be drowning because they didn't do the AI infrastructure bet, and what happens to software?
Yeah. So here's, and I could, everything we're going to talk about right now, I could be wrong about all of it. I could be
That's
proven wrong about
okay.
everything I'm about to say, right?
It's okay.
But in my view, there's certain things that have never changed, I think, in venture. First and foremost is we're always trying to bet on the best people. Now, how you define best is completely subjective, but no one really has built a career betting on bad people. Like, that's just not a winning strategy.
Fair.
Right? So, say what you will about Elon Musk or whatever, right? Like, would I want to work with him? No. But if I had him and others in the portfolio like him, it would be the result of saying, when we said, are these the best people for whatever it is that we're investing in, the answer probably would have been yes. It's the only way they would end up in the portfolio. You're really trying to match founder with the opportunity and the outcome, right? And the journey. So I would argue that independent of what happens to software, independent of what happens to AI or anything else, first and foremost, you got to make sure you're investing in the right people. And the right people for this moment are the people that could possibly be working on a software business initially, that have had to embrace what's happened with AI, and they have used it to their advantage and have evolved into a place where AI enhances the opportunity and potentially the scale of the outcome. That's what you have to do right now, because we're in this period of transition. Now, I don't believe that software is just going to disappear and that, AI is going to eat the world and, SaaS is gone and all, like, whatever. Like, I remember when virtual reality and augmented reality was going to take over the world in a matter of 2 to 3 years.
Right.
So we've been there. We've done this already. Now, this was a little different. I would argue that the alarm bells are different. But at the same time, what we're really betting on is not necessarily how you do it, meaning if you do it via software, if you do it versus, using AI, whatever. The bets here have to be on, how are you doing this work today? How do I think you're going to do this work tomorrow? And what is going to be the condition of the problem you're trying to solve? Is it a big problem today and that problem is eliminated tomorrow? And as a result of that, there's an opportunity to win and win big. If that's what we're doing, then that's what I want to do. Are you going to do that using software? Are you going to use that, quote unquote, using AI, which quite frankly, they're the same thing. They're still, it's like, it's not like they're not involved, right? Until the robots take over completely, we've still got a lot of human interaction in this space. And it's a combination of AI and software. So we got time to invest in solutions that are bringing these things together. Now, the thing that I find is even more interesting is that there have been 2 major transitions that have happened in the last, call it 7 years or so, like more prominently. One is the collapsing, like the battle lines were previously drawn, and now they've gotten completely blurred. And I'll give you an example. When I got into venture capital, if I walked into the partner meeting on a Monday and I said, hey guys, we should invest in this company. They're doing business with the federal government and the Department of Defense, I'd have been laughed out of the room. And I would not be able to find a home almost anywhere in venture, because That you just said all the bad words. Federal government, contracts, defense, like no one wanted to touch it. Now, that's one of the key questions. Like, oh, is this dual use possibility? Like, is this frontier tech or not? Like, all of that. If it's not that, then what are we doing? If we're not in the business of killing people, then what business are you in? Like, that's really where we've gotten to be. Like, war is good for business. So you have that issue. The other one, which is somewhat related, is it also used to be a hard line. Are you a software investor or are you into hardware? And I was 1000% software. I don't do hardware. Everyone knew I don't touch it. I don't do media. I don't do hard tech. Like, you manufacturing some stuff, you talk to the wrong guy. But now we have this merging of the physical world and the virtual world and the digital world. And these things are getting to the point where they are so interlinked. So I have my youngest son, excuse me, just finished his first year in college. And I said, give you some names of companies, because he's a mechanical engineering major, wants to get into robotics. I said, I want you to tell me if this is a hardware company or a software company. I said, Tesla. And he's like, that's both, right? And we just keep going down the list. It didn't matter. They're both. They're both, right? And so that blurring of lines as well is going to create a different type of investment activity, which then requires a different perspective from investors. Like, I'm no longer I only do software, I don't touch anything else. I can't operate that way, because a lot of stuff that they're going to be doing now is going to be, well, I want self-driving technology. I want, I want flying, aircraft. I want watercraft. I want all kinds of different things, but I all want them to be smart. And it's beyond smart. The smartwatch is one thing. We're talking about things that can autonomously operate. And so that requires a combination of my son's expertise that he's going to, develop, along with some software engineers, along with some AI capabilities. Like, it's a completely different ballgame. So our lenses through which we view the world of opportunity have got to adjust, and they have to change. And I think that those things are going to have perhaps a bit more of a dramatic impact on fund managers. And so then I go back and I think about the fact that we have a wave of managers right now, like to your point, hey, we didn't get access to these companies. We weren't able to be at the, I'm not on the, on the cap table as an angel investor or as a seed investor in XYZ company that today has been valued at $13 billion or whatever has happened in record time. The LP community in many circles is expecting to see that when you're coming back around looking for fund two, and they're like, well, where are your, I don't see Anthropic on your list of companies you invested in, and to your point, and they're not even in your anti-portfolio. And it's not so much, I think that they aren't even aware of that they're doing it. But what they're really trying to find out is, well, how can you guarantee you're going to get access to the next one? Because the guys who just left pitching me on their next fund and they want to raise $4 billion, they told me I can get access to any of those things because they know this guy, they know that guy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got different hurdles to hit to ensure that we can get the capital we're looking for. And this is even if you're not looking for $4 billion, you just want to have 40 million. Like, it's, the things that they expect that you're going to be able to show, it's tough. It's really, really tough.
100%.
Yeah, so my question to you, William, is where are you bullish right now? And like, where are you leaning in that others may not be looking right now in the venture space?
All right, so I can't give away all the secret sauce, but I will give you this one. There's an area in which we like to look for opportunities, and it's an area that no one really likes to deal with. And so that's in regulatory technology, so call it Reg Tech, right? We work with highly regulated industries. A lot of our LPs come from the insurance world as well as from the world of banking. And if you know, in this country, in general, we don't like following the rules. It's just how we are, right? So we're always looking for ways to not follow the rules. But the business of rules is a good business to be in. We have a tremendous amount of change happening literally on a daily basis. And in an effort to move really fast, we break all kinds of stuff in the process and we get rewarded for that behavior by and large. And we find ourselves playing catch up. And so we've basically allowed everyone to go out and do whatever you want to do in the name of beating China or just being fast and grabbing as much land as you can. Don't worry about whether or not it's your land or not. Like, all this stuff is happening. Eventually it all catches up because we start to digest that and we realize that we've allowed too much behavior to happen that is not going to be healthy. And so leveraging technology to help us rein things in, ideally catching up, but ultimately starting to build a new set of rules under which to operate so that we can be a lot more efficient from a business standpoint is where we ultimately want to land. And so we've invested in one company in particular that's helping to audit behavior that's already occurred or is happening in real time to ensure that that is compliant with all the rules and regulations that exist on the federal and state level. And that's, to me, is just great. We're just, that's just kind of the top of the iceberg. When I look at what AI is going to enable, I look at the opportunities that it creates because of the speed by which it is being allowed to expand and to run. It's going to cause all kinds of problems. And so those problems are going to have to be solved. They're going to have to be addressed. And they have to be done so in an intelligent manner, because the consequences of not doing so thoughtfully, in many ways, is going to impact some of the most vulnerable communities. And so the sooner we can get on board with this idea that you can let this thing run unchecked if you want, but there's got to be something running right behind it that's trying to, in many ways, kind of clean up the behavior before it becomes chronic. That's an area of opportunity, I think, excuse me, that AI brings to the table and to the forefront. And so digging more and more into that space, it takes a lot of time to understand it. It's a different language. These are different kinds of people. I was in Vegas a couple months ago at a trade show for RegTech. There's no way in the world anyone could have told me that's where I would be if I was in Vegas. I was out there for 3 days, completely different group of people. Not my typical kind of folks that I hang out with, but a lot of money, a lot of value, and a lot of opportunity. So that's just one example.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. I am so grateful for you stopping by and dropping some gems with us, William. I think not just our listeners, but I got a lot of value out of this conversation, and just want to say, just like how grateful I am to have you in this ecosystem. We need you. Don't go anywhere. You're so special. So thank
I
you.
appreciate that. I do. But thank you for the invitation as well. Like I said, I don't do these much, but I enjoy talking about what I see and what I've experienced, and hopefully it's helpful to someone else who's watching or listening. Thanks, you all, and have a great week.
And that's the Check Writers Room. Special thanks to Natalia Skoko for editing. Subscribe to our newsletter and view show notes at checkwritersroom.com. Leave us a review wherever you are listening.